Go ahead and start the recording, Jamie. This is Marty Exline with the AT3 Center. I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today, What's New in Assistive Technology Demo and Loan Inventories. This year, many of you have already purchased items for your demonstration or for your loan inventories. Many of those additions are related to COVID in terms of including devices to help the people you work with social isolation, with telework, telehealth, distance learning, and for other purposes. If you're on the Assistive Technology DemoLoan listserv or the AT3 listservs, you've seen several state programs share their comments about or questions about devices they've added to their inventories related to COVID. And so we wanted to have several of them share a snapshot of what they're adding in their inventories or what they are thinking about in terms of adding devices. So among the things we want to share today and explore are what devices that states have purchased or are in the process of purchasing that are especially relevant to COVID and how you'll deploy any of those, whether it's focused on distance education, telehealth, telework, or social isolation. And then, are there any particular issues that you've had to resolve or are working through now related to your device loan inventories, either to your regular loan program or through a new program, maybe funded through CARES Act or other funding? And then, in addition to COVID-related devices are mentioned, are there other devices that you've added to your loan or demo programs in the last year to your inventories? And are there any that you're especially glad about because of particular features or other aspects of the devices? Go ahead on to the next slide. So just a few reminders, of course, to see captions, go ahead and click on the CC button on the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Enter any questions or comments in the chat window. And we'll have 4 different speakers, and we'll stop after each one to see if you have any questions or comments as far as that particular panelist. And then at the end, we'll have folks talk about other devices or questions that they have about other devices that people have added to their inventories. Upcoming events, make sure you check in at the at3center.net events page for other devices, for other webinars or other events. Registration links for all of the webinars will be sent out via the AT3 listserv or the DemoLoan listserv. And please complete the post-webinar survey when you receive it after the webinar. We want to know about other topics that you would like to see either for the DemoLoan community of practice or for other webinars. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So our panelists today are Molly Kimmel from the Montana AT program, Montech, Laurie Brooks from the Oregon Access Technology programs. It's Laura Hoffman with the Missouri Assistive Technology program, and Justin Amber with the Indiana Assistive Technology program. So before we start and have Molly take over, go ahead and go to the next slide. So appreciate everybody that participated in the survey we sent out, asking about what kinds of devices you've added to your programs. Just a quick snapshot, not a surprise, a lot of people are adding tablets to their inventories, pretty large number, laptops, not so much desktops. Several programs are adding mobile hotspots to their webinars, to their device loan inventories or to device demo inventories. And then a fair number are adding smart speakers too. And we're also going to, when we send out the recording for the webinar, we're also going to send out a listing of all the devices that people have reported adding to their inventories, whether it be for demo loan or for device demonstrations. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Molly. So we'll stop sharing the screen and let Molly go ahead and turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Marty. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. I'm going to start my timer because without that 10-minute reminder, I could talk for the whole hour. Hi, everybody. I'm Molly Kimmel. I'm the program director at Montech. I do have just a couple of slides to share because otherwise I would get a little off track. So hopefully you are seeing my PowerPoint here. And I just wanted to start out with a short timeline. You know, some of you are familiar with the fact that I haven't been with Montech in the PC times pre-COVID. So everything I've been doing as program director has been COVID related. That's really been my focus as I started in the middle of April. We were able to reopen to the public in May, so I feel like we've had a lot of time to test things out and trial and error and figure out what works for us and what we do need to add to our inventory in order to meet the needs of Montanans. So I really spent May through August just a lot of brainstorming, a lot of partnering, trying to figure out where the CARES money went and if we can have any part of it. And if we can't have the money, then how can we support those who do? So we did a lot of that this summer, also really trying to figure out what educators we're going to need in the fall. So we held a one-day conference in August called MontCom and really used survey results from that group of participants to influence some of what we bought and really more trainings that we offered in the fall as well. A big highlight in August was that we had this call from our Family to Family Health Information Center. And so I'm going to talk about that extensively on the next slide. And then we did offer some really great education webinars, not necessarily a piece of inventory, but a wonderful opportunity for educators across the state in October. So the Family to Family Health Information Center in our state is also housed in the same USED that we are, so that's convenient. And the program coordinator reached out to me in August and said, listen, they're giving F2Fs $7,500. It's a short application and it's specific to telehealth. What do you think about partnering? Is there any way you can see Montech using this money? And I really liked that F2Fs really focused on telehealth rather than telemedicine. It's just a broader definition, knowing that this isn't just how people interact with their healthcare providers, but this is how people access healthcare in any way. So this could be a public health training, this could be a virtual support group, this could be an F2F event that people could attend. And so they really wanted to be able to make sure that folks in Montana had access to what they needed to engage in these telehealth activities. So when Jen said, how about we write the grant for you to have the money so you can buy all the equipment? I said, okay, that was an easy sell for sure. And it even turned out that F2F had a little bit extra money than they were planning on, so they offered a second round of grants. So all told, we ended up with $15,000 from the F2F in order to support telehealth needs in Montana. And we are using the bulk of that funding to really amp up our inventory with what you see on the screen here, which I'll go through a little bit. And just acknowledging that these came from an F2F mini grant specific for telehealth. There is no requirement that as they get checked out or loaned out that it must be for telehealth, but the intention is there. So we really wanted to use this as an opportunity to do a pilot program with hotspots. And we figured the only way we could do that is if we were able to do unlimited data along with them, knowing if people were using them for school, that data would get eaten up really quickly. So through our university, we do get a small discount on unlimited data. I tried to go with TechSoup, if anybody's familiar with that, which offers nonprofits $10 a month for unlimited data per device. But unfortunately, we didn't qualify for that. So we are paying $40 a month for the data. And we are using this as a chance to see if these go out. We all know the broadband internet story. We all know how challenging that can be, especially in these rural states. So we're promoting the heck out of this. and hoping that we send those hotspots out. Our libraries also have a hotspot lending program, but those are only for 14 days at a time with no extensions. And we're able to loan these out for 30 days at a time with an optional extra month extension if no one else is on the wait list. So we're really excited to get those going and out in the world. Along with that mini grant purchase, we heard from some therapists that they really wanted some better document cameras and web cameras with mounts. So we purchased some of those. Of course, tablets and laptops, just restocking, updating. We grabbed a few of these gimbals, which is the worst named device out there, I think, but they're really cool. They will, if you put a phone in there, and that's why we bought a burner phone, so nobody has to use their own. Our phone just has Wi-Fi on it, no minutes. If you put it in there, then whatever app you're using, it will track the subject. So if you have a little kid who's running around like crazy during a therapy appointment, this will do a 360 tracking of that person. And those are only $35. So they're a really cheap ad, something that somebody might actually purchase once they try these out. We looked at something similar called the Swivel, which some schools are using around here, and that was $1,000. So that was a no-go for us. Definitely updating our headsets, our mics, and some really cool accessible mice and keyboards. We've kind of been living in the wired age with our keyboards and our mice, so we're updating all of those. And then we did purchase some Google Nests and are waiting for some Amazon shows to play double duty. You know, this will work for telehealth, but also thinking about that social isolation piece. And finally, we're going to try to put together some telehealth kits. So basically gathering items that could be sent to a family, potentially if they're going through, you know, post-hospital discharge and they need to work on ADLs. We could send an ADL kit to them, and then the therapist could connect virtually while they go through the equipment. We're thinking about doing this for things like switch practice or meal prep or vision, just small kits that we could send out so we have those ready and can promote them. So then the other sort of categories that we've gone through that we've been thinking about the last several months have been stress relief. So what can we have in our inventory that promotes something that is a little bit more relaxing? So we've got a really cool yoga mat for visual impairment. I have links here that I can send out with the ParaPower if some people are interested. The Dream On band, yes, slap on your wrist before you go to sleep, and it emits these pulses that are supposed to help you relax and sleep better. So we thought that would be a good category of items to add to our inventory. And then we really wanted to promote being outside as well. So anything to get out of the germy indoors. So we were able to purchase a buddy bike, which is a really cool tandem where the kid sits in front and the adult is in the back, and the kid actually can help steer. So it's a two-wheeler. It's not a three-wheeler. You have to have some pretty good balance, but that's been a fun one. As well as the Emma, which is an all-terrain wheelchair, which we haven't had in the past before, but it's going to allow our clients to get out in the snow a little bit more, and in the summer out on some more sand or trails. It has these really big wheels on it that can go anywhere, and they're also a little bit floaty, so you can go into some shallow water as well. That's really fun. And of course, I had to throw in my favorite picture of the year, our new adaptive sled that is being showcased in the beautiful mountains of Montana. As far as social isolation, I really couldn't think of anything specific beyond the, iPads, laptops, things like that we've focused on. It's more in our messaging that we are just making sure that people are aware we are here to help you find ways to be connected virtually. And so that quote up at the top of the screen is from a woman that we just got this last week, and she had never used a computer. She had never used a tablet. We were able to set her up so that she could have a virtual birthday party with her daughters and with all of her grandkids. So that was really fun to get, and a reminder of why we do what we do. And then as far as employment supports, initially on, we did form some partnerships with VR, who was doing some telework grants so that we could do some work from home consultations as far as ergonomics and equipment that might be helpful for folks. And we really just try to use good modeling in all of our trainings. So we did purchase a streamer account so we could do AI closed captioning. That's a pretty cheap one. It's just $9 a month, and it's okay. It's not the best thing out there, of course, but it works for us in the amount of trainings that we do. And then education supports, we really heard more from educators that they wanted training more than they needed more stuff. They just needed to know how to use the stuff that they get. So we were able to do some additional webinars this last month that really focused on that, and we had some great attendance. So that is my 10 minutes, and my motion light just went off too. So that was my cue to go. I saw that I had 2 things in the chat, so I'm going to stop sharing. And oh, it was feel free to add any questions. So that's perfect. Any questions from anybody out there right now? That was the quick and dirty of what's happening in Montana, but this is constantly in the back of our minds is what can we do to support everybody in every environment? And we're really working hard on that.
Hey, Molly, one question in the chat was, are you going to send these lists out to the group?
Happy to. Yes, absolutely. And Rachel says, are you shipping AT or in-person loaning? We do ship across the state. Unfortunately, for those big items like the sled and the Emma, those are pickup only in our Missoula location. But as far as in-person lending, we'll do curbside pickup and drop off from both our Missoula and Billings locations, and then everything else is getting shipped out. Great question. And Shelly and I were able to talk in Oklahoma about some of those hotspots, so I'm glad you were able to follow up and hopefully get some yourself. That's great.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Molly.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
And so why don't go ahead and go on to Laurie Brooks in Oregon.
Great, thank you. So we use some of our end of the year funding first to update iPads and laptops that are in our lending library. Like everyone else, those were the really hot items, and we needed to get some newer ones in the library for folks. So even though we bought some to update in our demo lab, they're not here because we didn't plan far enough ahead. We didn't buy enough of them. And so those are out now with consumers too. So, but most recently we did receive some funding kind of through the channels of ADRC to implement a program to work with individuals who are lower income in one specific county of the state. And this activity is to provide technology to the individuals to help them with staying connected with their families and friends, completing their telehealth, telework activities. They just had a few requirements for the consumers. They had to be age 55 or older. And I think I take offense to that because they call that older individuals. And I just don't think we're all older individuals. We're just age 55 and older. And then they couldn't have the income, the finance currently to be able to purchase the technology for themselves. So we just got the go-ahead for implementing this program last Thursday, and we have to have all the money spent by the end of December, as in next month. So we started the outreach portion just immediately. We do expect to be providing tablets and laptops, the accessories that an individual might need, to be successful with their equipment. We kept our terminology in our MOU very general because we didn't want to get locked into anything specific when it comes to working with that individual. We kind of have a price point of the amount of money we could spend on one individual, but we didn't want to say we were just going to provide an iPad or a GrandPad or, a Chromebook. We wanted to leave it as general as we could for people. That's going to leave us the flexibility for the next, what do we have, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to purchase that equipment that might not be available if we kept it locked in with specific terminology there. At the end of that 12-month period, this equipment does belong to the individuals. So once we identify the individuals, we will do a phone assessment with them, identify the technology for them, purchase the equipment. The program will cover internet and cellular service for them for up to 12 months. And then that equipment will become theirs. We'll provide training, technical support for the 12 months that they're with the program. We're going to do virtual or in-person setup and training and follow along services with people, depending on their comfort level and what they need. As long as, you know, things don't change in the state and we're permitted to meet with people in person. You might know Oregon hasn't ever officially been shut down. So we have never been shut down. We have continued to meet with individuals at their workplaces and at their homes with social distancing and the proper PPE. So our challenges for this 12-month project is basically the time frame. While we know it's for 12 months, you know, we basically had 6 weeks to spend the funds. So that's going to be a little bit challenging. Like I said, we did start the outreach on Thursday when we got the green light, and we're so excited. We got our first call on Friday, and the lady was just a hoot. And then she told us that the county she lived in, and it didn't qualify her because she doesn't live in the county that she had to live in for this service. However, there was good news. She has a client. She's a care provider. So she has a client that does live in the correct county, and she would just benefit so greatly from this program. So we called her. We used the language line. You guys might be more experienced with it than we are. It is our first time in all the years to use the language line. So it took 50 minutes to get through this conversation with the delightful lady. And we got to the question about, so tell us how the lack of technology has affected you during the quarantine. That's a big question to qualify for this program. She has no problems because she loves this country and she prays to God, and that's all she needs. So there we sit, Friday at 4:30, and we don't have any consumers yet. But we got some phone calls from some of the other agencies that we've been doing a whole lot of outreach with. They think they have a lot of consumers lined up and just waiting to give us a call. So we're hopeful that we're not going to have to use much of those funds and do some paid outreach, but we're going to give it another week and see what happens. Stay tuned. We would love to share this in the end of December when we can tell you how many consumers we were able to serve. We've, you know, obviously they want us to reach out to individuals who are not English speaking. They gave us a whole list of qualifiers in that situation. So that will reduce the number of people we would be able to serve because we will need to use the translation line, and we'll need interpreters or translators when we're working with the folks. But I think it's going to be exciting. The other ADRC offices are kind of watching this as a model in Oregon to see what's going to happen. And they're talking amongst themselves about what they're going to do with their other COVID funds, because these are not COVID funds. That needed to be really clear at the end. They're not COVID funds, hence the reason they have to be spent by the end of next month. So, do you have any questions about this great program we're going to be doing?
I don't see anything yet, Laurie. Maybe there'll be some at the end, but yeah, we definitely are going to be interested in keeping us posted on how everything rolls out.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's just, you know, it's like anything. It's kind of new. So, how are we doing the outreach and getting the consumers involved? We started with, and know that the agency that provided the funds wanted to do the initial outreach to folks that they thought would be interested in the program. So we had to kind of hold back there a day or two before we could reach out. And then try not to do a lot of duplication. So there's literally hundreds of agencies that have been emailed with the information. We did talk to the agency up front and said, you know, we would set X amount of money aside for a paid television shot if we have to do that. And so they are aware of that, but they're pretty sure that we don't have to do that. We'll see. We also told them we might do some Facebook pay for clicks or, you know, something like that too, but they really don't want the money spent on the outreach if at all possible. So, yeah.
You did have one question about where did the funding come from?
They said it was some money through ACL to ADRC, and it's a behavioral health fund that was received.
Great. Thank you very much, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to Laura Hoffman at Missouri Assisted Technology.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what changes we've dealt with in Missouri. I would say that our biggest change was not in the technology per se, but the training and how the support teams received information on the technology. We really had to find new ways to reach out to folks since we weren't going into facilities and into the schools. So we started promoting new technologies through a newsletter that we blasted out to the state that we're continuing to do weekly. We've worked at developing our YouTube channel. And then recently we started doing Zoom meetings with support teams at facilities and school districts. So the teams can get together via Zoom and bounce AT questions off of us and then be supported through the lending library with those technologies. I will say that the technology or the devices that are going out from our lending library are a little different than I would have expected. Last year, we had a lot of dedicated communication devices going out. We were on a wait list early on in the school year from districts borrowing those devices. I find that those devices sit on the shelf a little bit longer this year. I think maybe the districts are having a harder time supporting them with the students doing hybrid learning. Some different devices that have not been going out that are going out now are things like our double robot, where the student can be at home and the robot itself is able to be in the school. So we've had a little bit of a wait list on that, and then we're looking into buying additional robots for our inventory. I also find that, or I found that alternative inputs are being explored quite a bit, and I think it's to encourage more independence for those learners at home. So we have a lot of head tracking devices going out, joust joysticks, that sort of thing, looking for alternative input for independence for the learners. One of my favorite things that we've been able to get into inventory that we didn't have last year is the Prox pad with the tangible objects for the visually impaired or blind communicator. And so we have that in-house now. Some apps that I have found to be very helpful during COVID, actually my three favorite are from AbleLink. They are the Wayfinder, the Visual Impact, and the Endeavor apps. They really encourage that independence. The Visual Impact is a step-by-step support for accomplishing a task. So if the person needs to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you can give them step-in-step instructions with visual cues, pictures, videos that can all be customized for them. And then those tasks can be added into the Endeavor scheduler and reminders can be sent to them, just all building on this independence. And then the Wayfinder app allows the individual an independent GPS system to be able to travel around the community or a job site with independence. It gives directions, provides images, and will tell the user if they're going in the wrong direction or if that's not their bus stop, or what to look for when out in the community. So those are my 3 favorite apps. And then another one that we've discovered this year is the InnerVoice communication package for those kids on the spectrum. We've been using that quite a bit and send that out a lot. But like I said, the biggest change for us is how we've been training and getting the technology out there. Over the summer, we really found people scrambling for solutions. So we set up 4 boot camp trainings where we sent out mass quantities of technology to support teams. For instance, one week we sent out like 40 iPads for a single training where teams were able to get together, have the iPads loaded with apps that were part of the training, and then we fed information through our YouTube channel, and we called it a boot camp. It was a week-long intensive on learning particular apps for cause and effect, literacy, and AAC applications. So we've run with that one twice. It's done very well. We did alternative input methods on the iPads as well as the built-in accessibility on iPads. Those trainings went over well, but once teams were back in the classroom, that type of training couldn't be supported because of getting the teams together. So that's when we changed up a little bit of how we're doing things, and we're constantly learning and preparing for the next step. It looks like a lot of our schools are going to go back to remote learning, so we'll figure that as we go along. But so far so good. Our loan numbers are up, our calls are up, and I feel as though we're doing a good job of getting information out to people. And David has a great new project he'd like to share.
All right, I just want to talk real quickly about a couple of things. I know our allotted time is fast running out, and you might have just heard somebody bark here in the background. So we've also had a couple of initiatives going on around purchasing assistive technology or helping get assistive technology into the hands of individuals across the state for telehealth and distance education. We've had one large project that has been with our Developmental Disabilities Council that's served about 175, 180 individuals to work with them and then get AT in their hands, a lot of tablets, a lot of laptops, those types of things. And then the other large project that we have going on is the came out of the first CARES Act, or the CARES Act, and it's with our Institute for Human Development, which is our USAID IL centers and our AAAs across the state of Missouri. And Missouri doesn't really have AC, or what do you call them, ADRCs, and so it's a little bit of a hybrid of how some other states might be doing this. But we are going to be doing some kits which aren't really that different from some of the kits that other people have mentioned, but we're somewhere right after the holidays, we are going to start to loan on a large scale adapted pets or robotic pets. The Joy, what's the name of the company? Joy for All. Yeah, Joy for All is the company that sells these. They have a cat, they have a kitten, they have a dog. And so this is the cat, and I'm sure many of you have seen these before, but this kind of came out of the whole social isolation issue that seniors are encountering in particular. And so we have 3 or 4 AAAs in the state that are participating in this. And then the Institute for Human Development, which is you said, is going to do a research project tied to this. But this will be something that we will be loaning through Missouri Assistive Technology, and we're trying to find creative ways to package these up and encourage people to use them and engage with others through using these robotic pets that are available and relatively inexpensive too. So we're really kind of excited about trying to figure out where that might go and what kind of impact it might have in a positive way for decreasing to some degree social isolation and encouraging a little bit more engagement among people who are feeling that way. So unless there are some questions, I'll hand it back over to you, Marty.
There are a couple of questions. One was, you've probably heard this one before. How are you going to clean the robotic robo pets? We've looked at them, but sanitation theory.
We're still kind of working on that, because right now the way that this first round of pets is set up is that they're just going to go directly to the individuals and they can hang on to them as long as possible. So that's kind of a one-off type of thing. If we start to get them back, we will have to spend more time, obviously, figuring out the best way to do that. And that's just something we'll begin to address a little bit farther down the road, but it is of concern.
And then the other question, who is the audience for your boot camp?
I'll hand that.
We opened it up to everybody. I will say the majority of the folks that participated were either families of users or the school districts. So I had a lot of parents that joined in, which was nice because we were able to support them at home, as well as teachers, therapists, and the support teams from school.
Great, thanks, Laura.
Yep.
And David. I don't see any other questions right now. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Justin Amber in Indiana. Hi, Justin.
Hello. I am terribly sorry for being late. We are currently in the middle of doing inventory, so I've just got numbers running through my head. So I was in the middle of doing that, and I looked at the clock, and I kind of had a little bit of a panic. So I am here, though, and thank you for having me. As Marty said, I am Justin Amber. I'm with the NData project in Indianapolis, Indiana. We serve the entire state here, and we've been open as far as doing loans since about the middle of June. So there was a period of time towards the end of March, all the way until June, where we weren't loaning anything out at all. So that affected our loan and demo numbers. The loans are slowly creeping their way back up, but the demos have kind of just skyrocketed, and I'm not really sure why that is, but we've been going out all around the state and doing demos. Well, part of that is being safe. So we have to ask questions, whether they've been sick or not, to let us know at least 48 hours if they if they have been sick, and people have been good about that. So we're heading up. Let's see some of the new things that we're doing here. We've got some new program. It's mostly with our clinical team, but we've come across some funding that is allowing us to purchase smart home devices and install those in people's homes to kind of help with the social isolation aspect of COVID right now. That's not part of our lending library or demo program, but it is something that as a part of our program, we are going to be advertising just because it is a big issue right now. So let's see some other things. Right when the pandemic started, we were very proactive with some of the things that we're doing. So we knew that telehealth was going to be a very big thing. So with our reutilization program, we quickly went in and we took aside some desktops and some last laptops and made sure that they were cleared off and everything. And then we installed Zoom and some other software on them so that there's other programs in our building that aren't related to the Assistive Technology Act that really need that equipment. So we've got things like adult day services and autism therapy. So in the beginning, when we weren't doing in-person services and we had our building closed, we got those computers out as fast as we could so that we can continue to provide those services since we weren't able to provide them in person. Those are the really big things. One thing that we've added that I really have enjoyed demoing to some people is the GrandPad. I think Laurie might have mentioned that. So I've probably done 10 of those, and we got it in July or August. I can't remember, but it seems to be just a pretty popular item to show. I don't know for sure how many people that have gone out and actually purchased it, because we just have the demo unit that we can't really, hook up to data or anything. But people are responding really well to that. Excuse me. I personally showed it to my grandparents. My grandma, just on a personal level, she has dementia, and so there is a big part of social isolation for her. And so instead of me going and visiting, I've had to kind of do that. And so we did some FaceTime in the beginning, and so now she's got a GrandPad and everything. So that's great stuff. Trying to think of what else we got going on. Sanitization is a really big thing for us. We were pretty proactive on that as well. It's not anything we can loan out, but one really cool thing that we've added to our lending library is a UV closet. And so it's probably 4 by 4, so you can't really stick big items in it. You can maybe stick a couple laptops in it if you set them up on their side, but we've been putting iPads in there. We can still wipe those off, but we've been putting like smaller items in there as well when they come back. And we cleared out a closet that's on our floor to be able to quarantine items as they're returned to us. And so they'll stay in there for about 2 weeks, depending on the item. If it's something where there's a big wait list for it, we purchased a bunch of cleaning supplies. So we'll make sure that that's not quarantined, and we'll wipe it down as thoroughly as possible. With every loan that we have going out, we also provide an alcohol pad so that when it does reach our consumers, that they can be able to wipe off the devices themselves, depending on exactly what that is. You're not going to be able to wipe off a laptop bag, but we also send some instructions beforehand. So when they get it, if they feel comfortable just kind of letting that sit, for a few days, we've been doing that as well, just kind of providing that instruction. So I think that's pretty much it on our end of things.
Justin, one question was
Yeah.
About the GrandPad, whether it requires a monthly subscription. I know there were several programs that indicated on the survey that they had purchased the GrandPad.
Yeah, so the device itself, I want to, don't quote me on this, but I think it's around $200. And then it's a $40 a month subscription fee after that. And that includes your texting, your data, your video calls, and then there's some music and games and stuff that comes on it as well. But yeah, one time $200 and then $40 a month.
And then one question that had been asked earlier was just about, and I think this was specifically to Laurie, and you had mentioned it, but just in terms of outreach, is there anything anybody's doing new if you have devices now that are addressing social isolation, or are you doing anything new as far as outreach with any of your devices, and just anybody?
Yeah, we actually have some money set aside each year for marketing and doing news spots, and so we've done a few local news features here, just kind of highlighting that clinical funding that we had to purchase the smart home devices, and so we've done that a couple of times. And just talk about our program, trying to get the word out that we are open and that we can provide assistive technology for people in Indiana.
Anybody else? Anything new you're doing with outreach or letting people know about your services?
Well, I popped mine in the chat after I was done talking. We did reach out to the local representatives, our congressional members in that specific county, the local senators, and they're really sharing it. They were just emailing right now because we're very early into that outreach piece of the program. So they're emailing now who they're sharing that information with. So hopefully we've got some good connections, but I don't know, that paid media is probably going to be something we're going to have to turn to.
Thanks, Laurie. Anybody else among the panelists or the attendees, if you are muted and you want to unmute yourself in terms of outreach?
Yeah, we haven't done anything out of the unusual. I think, like Justin, our phones are ringing off the hook, and we're getting, our loan numbers are actually better than last year at this time. And people are feeling really comfortable doing virtual demonstrations. I think that's one benefit we have right now of the pandemic, is now when you say, hey, do you want to do a Zoom call? People get it and are agreeable to it. So it almost feels like we're able to reach some of those hard to reach corners in Montana a little better right now than before. So luckily we haven't had to do anything too extra.
Great, Molly. Angela in Texas mentioned that they connected with the Texas Education Agency and their program for distance ed and students with disabilities. There's one question about, are some vendors open to product placement to loan out their equipment to the program? I think just in terms of, is anybody getting either just really good discounts or equipment at no cost from any vendors to include in your demo loan program? I see several people smiling. So I'm going to take that as a no.
Hey, Marty, I'll chime in. It's Laura. I actually have found that vendors are very giving right now. Actually, just this morning, I got off the phone with Quillsoft, who makes WordQ. And because we do 5-week loans, their 30-day free trial wasn't sufficient. So they sent me 24 free 60-day trial codes for their software. So that way we can load it on a laptop, let somebody borrow it for the 5 weeks, and you know, it'll just expire itself. And actually, David just pointed to the dog and cat that are on the table, and our first 3 devices were given to us by the company so that we could check them out. We've also gotten free keyboards in the last month, lots of different software codes, that sort of thing. I think the vendors are struggling to get their products out there. You know, now that the conferences are all virtual, it's harder for things to be seen. And it's always worth a phone call to see who will let you demo their stuff or have it in your lab. But I get yeses more often than I get no's. So.
Well, that's good news.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would echo that too, Laura. A couple of examples just this last month, we were looking at a new link graphic device, and I think it's quoted at 7,500, something like that, and they were willing to give it to us for 4,000. So that was a significant discount just from connecting with our vendor. And then you know, there's a couple of other AT programs who have connected with PresentPal, the app. They're out of Scotland, and they are willing to give that thing to anybody. So it's a presentation support, and plus you get on a Zoom call with them, and they have that great Scottish accent, so it's really entertaining.
Thanks, Molly.
I found that, you know, places like Scanning Pens, Logan Tech, a lot of different companies are even doing direct loans from the company for 30 days if they can't get supported through one of the lending libraries. I think they're just really struggling to get the technology out there.
And Justin, one other question about the GrandPad. Somebody asked whether they gave you a demo unit, or do you have to activate and pay the monthly fee?
Yeah, so GrandPad does actually provide a free demo unit to Technology Act programs if you request one. So if I don't have the information right now, but the gentleman who is sending those out to Technology Act programs, he will do a demo with you and show kind of the features, and then he'll send it to your office. And it doesn't have the data activated, but you can still, there's demo features in there, so you can kind of get the picture. But yeah, we don't have an activated one, so we aren't loaning one out currently, but we are at least showing it to people. It's been pretty cool.
Thanks,
So,
Justin.
and I have been sending them numbers of how many people I've been showing it to every once in a while. They don't get on you about it, but I just kind of do it as a courtesy because they asked if they could hear about how many people that you're showing it to. Another thing that I didn't know beforehand was that they can actually see when it's been turned on and stuff. So I guess they have access to a little bit of data, but you're not actually putting in anybody's personal information. So that is another thing just to consider if you are going to get another one, to just keep that in mind. Justin,
this is Laurie. So I put Pat's information into the chat window. That's who we work with GrandPad. I was just having a conversation with him because he would, you know, be concerned that maybe we weren't demoing it enough for him. Because when they track those units, they are paying a monthly fee in order to have access to track those. So my conversation with him yesterday was he's going to start turning that trackability off. And so he tested it with one of our units in here and we didn't see any difference. So he's going to maybe even behind the scenes turn off the tracking to all the ones that he has on loan to the AT programs. So, but let him know if you see something different.
Okay, yeah.
With the way our units are working. So we didn't notice anything.
Yeah, because you could go a while without showing it. So.
Exactly. And he said, do I need to send call tags? I'm like, no, we'll turn it back on and play with it again. See?
And a couple of people mentioned Don Johnson as sometimes being generous or in terms of a discount. And Rachel Wilson asked about whether anybody is using any specific type of assessment to identify social isolation or just getting the referral from another agency to address the concern.
Yeah, this is Molly. We're not using anything currently. I think it's a great idea to think about, but we're just getting referrals right now.
I don't see any other questions right now. Anybody else, if you have anything in particular that you've been especially impressed with or glad you got it to address social isolation or anything related to COVID as far as telehealth or distance learning or anything?
Marty, this is Angela Standridge, and I don't have a thing, but I noticed there was a couple of comments through the webinar about students with disabilities who use augmentative communication, or maybe it doesn't have to be a student, it could be any person, I guess. But the ASHA SIG 12 did a webinar, I want to say like late March, that is accessible to speech pathologists who have ASHA memberships. And it was excellent on how to do AAC remotely. And there's also some additional follow-up. They, instead of doing their conference, they're doing this thing called the Signature Series, but there's quite a few of these mini webinars that address that as well that are available, I think, starting this month, and then they're going to be available in their learning environment after that. How much it costs depends on your level of access that you pay for through ASHA. But it was really a very superb webinar, and they kind of put it out there early. So I thought a lot of the therapists that had access to that maybe had a hand up on providing that AAC virtually.
Thanks, Angela. And if you do have a link that you could provide, then we'll go ahead and make sure we send that out with the webinar materials.
Okay, I'll send it to you in an email or something. I can't find it right now.
Yep, that sounds perfect. Anybody else, other devices, just go ahead and unmute yourself.
I guess the only other one that I didn't mention that we have been seeing go out every once in a while is smart home technology specific to stove and oven monitoring. And so with people not able to go into homes of older adults who may have issues around the kitchen, we have purchased a few items that give that remote monitoring piece, and people have been really happy with that. And even the remote monitoring of something like the Google Nest and the Amazon Show, where you can pop in and see what's going on, people have appreciated that too, as creepy as it is.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. I'll give a second for anybody to jump in. I will say that on the survey, I did notice that there were some states that had purchased devices that we had highlighted through some of our vendor DemoLoan community to practice webinars. So I was happy to see that hopefully that gave some people some information, and it resulted in them obtaining the devices. So we will go ahead and, like I said, send out with our materials just a listing of all the different devices that people listed in the survey to give people a better idea of the kinds of things that folks had purchased, whether related to COVID or just related to their usual typical demonstration and loan devices. So please share the stove monitoring device specifics. Do you remember?
Will do. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll add it to my list in my PowerPoint and have that get shared out.
Perfect. Well, with that, I want to thank.
This is Krista Kramer with the Idaho Assistive Technology Project.
Yeah, go ahead, Krista.
We've been putting together some accessibility kits for long-term care facilities to go along with the iPad distance telehealth stuff that they are already trying to do. So we have been ordering a variety and testing a variety of headsets for amplification, both hearing amplification and outgoing voice amplification. And one of the concepts that I'm finding very appealing are the collar-worn speakers with a microphone that ends up being just a few inches from a person's mouth in terms of increasing the other person's ability to hear the resident and vice versa. There's one put out by Inventories, the Taurus, that also has retractable earbuds. So if if the person prefers the privacy, they can use the earbuds. And if not, they've just got this speaker that's just a few inches from their ear around their neck. There's also the Be Here Access headset, which is another collar-worn one, but it's not a speaker. It is just earbuds, but it's well designed for, it's got big buttons for volume control, and it also has the capability of an environmental mic and a Bluetooth connection to a device so that the person can switch back and forth between listening to things in the environment, like a hearing aid, which is particularly useful for folks who are have no expendable income when they're in a facility, because it can be that crossover device. And it also has a charging cradle, which makes it much easier to plug in than the little micro USB things. So those are a couple of the ideas we've been testing and playing with lately.
Krista, can you mention the name or the vendor of the mic again?
So the two I mentioned were the Be Here Access headset and the other one is a Inventories Taurus, and that's the collar-worn speaker. I'll type those in the chat too.
Yeah, please do. Anybody else? I'll go ahead and wait a second so Krista can get that in the chat, but we'll go ahead and anything that was mentioned today, we'll go ahead and add that to the list from the survey. Great, thanks, Krista. Thanks again to everybody. We'll go ahead and, like I said, make sure you watch for the AT3 website for any upcoming events or the DemoLoan listserv or the AT3 listserv. And again, thanks for everybody. I think that's some great information you provided today. And everybody have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.